Hello, Realtors. Thanks for joining us in our regular series of broker webinars. We are very pleased today to have a friend and our guest speaker, Sean Carpenter, with us today. Originally licensed as a realtor in 1988, Sean is the former agent development director for the Ohio NRT companies. He jumped back into a sales role with Coldwell Banker, serving buyers and sellers throughout Central Ohio. He founded Sean Speaks in 2018 to expand his speaking, consulting, and facilitation opportunities. His most popular sessions focus on creating memorable customer experiences, maximizing social and digital media, as well as business planning, leadership, and sales. Formerly recognized by Inman News as one of the top 100 most influential leaders in real estate, Sean was also named as one of the top 20 most influential people in social media for the real estate industry by the Swanepoel Report for the third year in a row. Sean received the Joseph McKinnon Award from the Columbus Realtors as their Instructor of the Year in 2017. Sean's mission is to teach with passion and enthusiasm, instilling confidence and excitement in his students. And he lives by his philosophy, building relationships, solving problems, and having fun. Let's give a warm South Carolina Realtor welcome to Sean. Sean, welcome.
Nick, good morning or good afternoon. How are you today?
Doing great.
I understand you're starting to get your summer heat down there, a little humidity.
Oh, it's, we call it South Carolina summer, and we're excited to get those summertime activities underway. I understand you were down here recently.
I was. My daughter graduated from the University of South Carolina, so go Cox, and it was a great time. I had great 4 years visiting her, and look forward to great things from her as she continues. So super excited to be here with you guys. Let me share my screen and jump right into it, because we got a fun presentation for you today called "Give Them Something to Talk About," and it's all about creating a better story for success, Nick. And so why don't I just jump into it? And if people have any questions, they can leave it in the chat. In fact, what I'd love to do is ask the people in the chat if you would let me know where you're tuning in from. Let me know what part of the state you are tuning in from, and I'll watch for it in the chat over there and see who's maybe the closest to Columbia and who's the farthest away. But quickly jump into it. As Nick said, my name is Sean Carpenter. I'm from Columbus, Ohio, and I am been in the real estate business for 20 some years now. And I started as a waiter and a bartender. I'd love to know how many of you guys were waiters and bartenders. Usually a lot of the real estate audiences were in real estate have served in the food service business at some point in time. I then became a golf pro when I got out of college. I worked at a big resort course in Brooksville, Florida, and then moved up to a private club in Cleveland. I'm not a great golfer anymore, but I sure do have fun on the golf course. After that, I moved back to Columbus, where I'm from, and I became a beer salesman. I worked for the Miller and Coors distributor in town. I called on all parts of the city, but I eventually landed at the Ohio State campus. So if you're ever going to sell beer, pick a spot where there's 45,000 students, and that is a great spot to sell beer. But as I started thinking about a future career, something I wanted to do when I grew up, I said to myself, what would be a career that would allow me to drink beer and play golf? So I got into real estate, and I got licensed, as Nick said, in 1998. I was a branch manager for a couple of years. I then became the director of agent development. And a few years ago, I decided to retire from that role, jump back to being an active agent here in Columbus, Ohio, as well as open up my own company to travel around the country and speak. So certainly honored to be here with you guys today. I know we have a couple different levels of people on the call. We have brokers in charge, we have brokers, and we have realtors. And so hopefully all of these things we're going to talk about today will allow you to impact your business in some form or fashion, no matter what role you have. And as Nick said, my philosophy is really simple. I started this philosophy as an agent. It carried over as a manager, as the director of training, and certainly now back as an agent and speaker. I really think real estate's about three things. It's about building relationships, it's about solving problems, and it's about having fun. Think about those three things I just talked about. If every single day we can be building relationships with people, either a new relationship with someone that we've never met, or deepening relationships with people we've known for years. If each day we can help people solve problems, and if each day we can have fun doing it, usually the contracts, the closings, the listings, the speaking gigs, whatever it is you're looking for, takes care of themselves. So I find that if I just focus on those three things each day, usually everything else is going to happen the way it should. And so when I fall asleep at the end of each day, I ask myself, did I build relationships today? Did I solve problems today? And did I have fun today? and I try and fall asleep answering yes to all those things. So if you are on social media, please feel free to connect with me on the social channels. I'm Sean Karp on Twitter and Instagram, and you should be able to find me there most of the time. And you can also find me on Facebook. So certainly would be excited to have you guys connect with me, and feel free to share out some of the things that we're talking about today. But I do want to start, Nick and our attendees, with a story of two hotels. The first is the DoubleTree Club in Houston, and the second is the Hilton in San Francisco. Now, the DoubleTree Club in Houston is probably like any other DoubleTree that I've been to, but I've never been to the one in Houston, but I do know about it. I know about it because of a slide deck that I saw on a social media site for speakers called SlideShare. And it's a presentation called Yours is a Very Bad Hotel. Now, this is a publicly viewed presentation of a bad experience that happened at the DoubleTree Club in Houston. And I want to share it with you so you can understand what happened. So this presentation called Yours is a Very Bad Hotel, it still lives online, and it to this day has over 90,000 views. This bad experience happened in early 2001, yet it still lives online as an example of what happens when we don't treat our customers properly. So here's how the story goes. In the early morning hours of November 15th, you see that these people were treated very badly indeed. Tom Firmer and Shane Atchison of Seattle, Washington had reservations for the DoubleTree Club. They showed up late and they were refused rooms. Now let's think about what happened. Maybe they were traveling from Seattle. Maybe they got stuck in Denver or Salt Lake City or Phoenix or one of the connecting airports. Maybe there's bad weather or mechanical issues. We've all been there. But they probably said to themselves, boy, we're going to get in late. At least we have our room reserved. Yet when they showed up, they were refused rooms. Refused rooms, but we were confirmed and guaranteed, they said. Mike, your night clerk, said the only rooms left were off limits because their plumbing and air conditioning had broken. He'd given away the last good rooms. He'd done nothing about finance accommodations elsewhere, and he was deeply unapologetic. Whoa. So these guys had a bad experience at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And instead of finding another hotel, they did what most people in today's world would do. They probably found an all-night Denny's and said, let's make a PowerPoint about how bad the service was and tell everybody we know. Now, if you're going to build a PowerPoint and you don't use PowerPoint a lot like a speaker might, you got to make sure you use lots of the charts and stats and animations. So they created a little career path of Mike, the night clerk. They guessed that he probably started as a paper boy. He eventually worked at Subway. At the point in time they made this, he was a rude hotel clerk. And they say by this time now, and somewhere in Houston, he's cleaning septic tanks. These guys weren't happy, were they? Well, so they obviously mapped out the services on a Venn diagram and said, here's where you compare. Now remember, guys, this happened right after 9/11. So they ranked the DoubleTree Club in that bottom left-hand corner there under the despises and mistreats customers and heading for a collapse. These guys were so unlikely to come back to this hotel. They put odds on returning to the DoubleTree Club in Houston. They said the lifetime chance of dying in a bathtub are 1 in 10,000. Earth being ejected from the solar system would be 1 in 2.2 million. Winning the lottery in England is 1 in 13 million. And us coming back to the hotel, worse than any of those. Y'all, these people weren't happy, and they wanted to let everybody they knew about what had happened to them that night. Now, here's the one I want you guys to pay attention to. You guys are most of you are independent contractors if you're a realtor. If you're a broker owner, you need to pay attention to this. But each of you runs your own business. And this is an important slide. They said, here's how much money we used to spend at the hotel. And here's how much we're going to spend in the future. Now, that one should really hit you between the eyes as a business owner, because of one person having a bad night, this could be the result. Now, if you were Mike's manager, you'd probably be pretty upset. Now, the good news is, for those of you big-hearted people, Mike wasn't fired. They used it as a training session, but they did ask the gentleman, would you please take the presentation offline? And they said, no, we won't do that. And here it sits 20 years later with 90,000 people viewing it and me talking about it every time I do this presentation. Now, let me tell you a better story about the Hilton in San Francisco. The Hilton in San Francisco for years and years and years hosted the Inman Connect conference in the summertime. And I've been very proud to be an Inman ambassador for years and years and years, and which meant that when we went to the conferences, we would sit in the front row, and our job was to text and tweet and video and chat and Facebook and YouTube about the events we were seeing to share out with our followers. On the first day of the event, we were there and the morning session had gone off without a hitch. The host of the show came out and said, folks, we're going to give you an hour and a half for lunch. When you come back after break, we're going to have the following agenda. So go ahead and grab lunch and we'll see you back here at 1:30. And as you can imagine, the room cleared out, right? A convention room with 800 to 1,000 people all running out to try and find lunch in the city of San Francisco and be back for the afternoon session. Now, luckily, I had arranged with my friends that we were going to meet across the dinner at the Pinecrest Diner. And so they were going to grab a table for me. And I'm in the front row of this place. So I'm shutting down my laptop, powering down my laptop, putting my stuff in my backpack. And when I turned around to look at this ballroom, I want you guys to picture a ballroom of maybe 1,000 seats. And at the point when I was walking out, I was one of the last ones to leave the room. In fact, the last few people were walking out the room some 200 yards away from me. And all the chairs were askew. There was banana peels and coffee cups and San Francisco Chronicle newspapers on the ground. The chairs were everywhere. And as I walked out, I looked to my left and I saw Marciano Arce, who worked at the hotel. Except that's not how I saw Marciano. See, as I was walking down the aisle, I looked to my left and I saw Marciano, and he was resetting the chairs back in line with the lines in the carpet. He was making sure that every chair was lined up exactly perfect. And I said, well, there's no way he's going to touch all these chairs. There must be 1,000 chairs in this room. And he did that row, and he did that row, and he did that row. And that's when I walked over and took a picture of him. And I thought, this is amazing. He's going chair by chair, row by row, making sure the room's going to look clean when we come back in. And I was so impressed by what he was doing. I was so overwhelmed by his commitment that instead of going to meet my friends for lunch, I walked back to the front row, pulled my laptop out of my backpack, and I wrote a blog post called, "Are you the chairman of your business? Are you doing things in your business because it's the right thing to do? Are you doing things in your business because it's going to help somebody else look better?" And I was just so amazed. And for those of you out there that are writers, I can't tell you what happened that day, but the words came from my head or my heart to my fingers, and I typed it out and I hit publish and I sent it out to my readers. And I ran and met my friends for lunch. Now, very quickly, I met my friends for lunch. They're like, "Why are you late, Carp?" And I said, well, and I explained what happened. I told them the story I just told you. And they said, "Well, that's great. Hurry up and order." And I said, "Do me a favor, guys. While I'm ordering, would you guys go on your phone and go on my Facebook page or go on my blog and read my post I just wrote?" And they did. And when they're done, they hit share. I got back to the hotel later that day and I was so impressed. I was still thinking about Marciano's excellent commitment to service that I found the general manager of the hotel and had a little talk with him. And I said, "I want to just point out someone that you might not even know in your hotel." And I get this message back from the general manager later that day saying, "It was a pleasure meeting you. I'll share this with the team," because I sent him a copy of my blog for him to read. The cool thing, guys, was the next morning when I woke up and I had this message from John Bernier, the human resources director for the hotel. Mr. Bernier writes me a note and he says, "Your blog post about Marcy's been making the rounds through our organization as we put it on our internal webpage. Additionally, Marcy's been nominated for the Spirit of Blue Energy Award that's awarded every quarter to team members worldwide." Now, pay attention to this part, guys. "It's always a treat to us at the hotel when someone notices the little things that our team does to deliver on their expectations. Sometimes team members will say, 'Why should I make it perfect if someone's going to come in 5 minutes and mess up all my work?' Your posting has given them reasons to make it perfect because you noticed." One of the most remarkable things about Marcy and his resetting of those chairs on that day is he's been doing this task for over 25 years. 25 years he's been doing this since he joined the Hilton in 1987. May we all have that passion for our work after 25 years. Thanks for recognizing Marcy. We'll make sure that he's recognized within the Hilton family. Guys, how cool is that? For 25 years, this guy's been resetting chairs in a banquet hall the way Michelangelo paints or Longfellow writes poetry. I was so impressed by that. But here's the cool thing. I don't get a lot of comments on my blog, but about a week later when I get this message from a guy named Marvin Arce, you recognize the last name? He says, "Sean, thanks so much for acknowledging my father at the Hilton. He's been working there for a long time and he takes his job seriously, as you've seen. This means a lot. I'm so happy people like you take time to appreciate the work he does for the Hilton. See, the question I have for you guys is, would you rather be Mike or Marciano? Would you rather be one person who is talked about in a bad way or someone who's talked about in a great way? See, every time I go back to the Hilton in San Francisco, I walk the halls until I find my friend Marciano. And he's always embarrassed. He says, Sean, why do you talk about me? Why do you take pictures with me? I say, Marciano, because you do your job with the most unbelievable passion and enthusiasm. And I want other people in my industry to know how impactful it can be. See, our world is changing. We have to all understand it's no longer word of mouth. What we're dealing with these days, guys, is word of mouse. It's Mike's story still living online 20 years later about a bad experience in Houston from two busy travelers who wanted to tell their story. It's also about me telling the story of Marciano in my blog and in my words and in my presentations and on my social feeds. We are all connected, and word of mouth is how your story will get told. Let's make sure it's a good story, one worth telling. Because if I say to you, what's our goal? What are we trying to do? Most people would say great service, Sean. If I can just deliver great service, I'll be okay. But I don't think great service is enough anymore. I really don't. I think great service is expected. Isn't great service expected by you when you put on your consumer hat? Don't you expect great service? Don't you expect the people you deal with, the services, the companies, the people to know what they're talking about, to have confidence and competence in what they do? See, I think what we need to be aiming for is not just great service. I think what we should be aiming for is a memorable experience. A memorable experience includes great service, but it's not just by itself great service. It's the entire experience. Because people these days don't talk about service, but they do talk about the experience they had. And if we in real estate can create a memorable experience from before, during, and most importantly, after the transaction's done, then we have a better chance of people telling that story about how we took care of them before, during, and after the sale is done. But I think great service is important. So we should probably define what great service is. And if you got the handouts or you saw it in the chat there from Nick, here, let's just talk about great service. I think there's a couple things that make great service. Number one, using your manners, saying please and thank you, looking people in the eye, right? Waiting your turn, not interrupting people. That's great service. Great service is knowing your stuff. That's not just knowing the contract and knowing how to use a lockbox. It's knowing your market, knowing your town, knowing your values, knowing your builders, having a good connection of vendors and affiliates that can support you and your company and your clients. Basic great service is using people's names. Y'all, let's do everyone a favor. If you see any service provider with a name tag on, use their name. Say their name. I never, ever order my coffee at Starbucks without saying the barista's name first. Can't tell you how many times the barista will say to me, how'd you know my name? I'll say, it's on your apron. And they say, oh yeah, I forgot. Why? Because no one else is using it. Number 4, show up on time, which in our industry is sometimes a challenge for people. Showing up on time means showing up a couple minutes early, being ready to go at the time we're scheduled. Nick, thank you so much for starting this webinar right on time. I can't tell you how many webinars I attend where they say, hey, we're going to give a few more minutes for the people that are running late. No, start on time. Show up on time. That's great service. Number 5 is return calls promptly, which doesn't say return calls immediately. Because I want to point out, every call is not urgent or important. So return calls promptly might be at our earliest convenience. I think within the hour is a nice point of reference. I think certainly by the end of the business day, we should be able to return calls. Number 6, communicate with people the way they want to be communicated with. If I send you a direct message on Twitter, then direct message me back on Twitter. If I send you a message on Facebook, then message me back on Facebook. If I leave you a voicemail and say, hey, Tabitha, would you please call me back? Then I would expect a call back. Number 7 is anticipate people's needs. The best companies anticipate their clients' needs. If you're going to work with a next first-time home buyer, they're probably going to ask the same questions as the last first-time home buyer. So anticipate that. And number 8 is an easy one. Under promise and over deliver. If you have no other slogan or mantra of your business, I would probably build this one into your business. Under promise, over deliver. That's great service. That's service worth talking about. That's service worth telling others about. That's service worth returning to and referring to. This is a sign that hangs on my office wall. It says, doing what's required only prevents customer dissatisfaction. But it says you must do more than is required to truly satisfy a customer. See, doing what's expected or required prevents customer dissatisfaction. We got to do more. We got to go above and beyond. So when someone hires us to list a home and we get to the closing table after selling their house and they don't have a parade for us or buy us a big gift or make a testimonial for us, and we say, why didn't they do that? Because you did what they expected you to do. You listed their house and you sold it. We've got to go above and beyond. None of us ever drive around the McDonald's to thank the people at McDonald's for getting our order correct in the drive-thru, do they? Because that's what they were supposed to do. So you got to figure out what are ways we can go above and beyond. What are ways we can do something a little differently? Because people do want to share their experiences. If you think about what we do, people love to share their experiences. When you go to a concert, hopefully this summer, you're going to start being able to get back out and go into live music and concerts and sporting events. And you see people with their cameras out so they can share their experiences that they were experiencing with the people that they follow, or maybe are watching them live. When you're on stage, it looks like this. There's people taking pictures of us. And certainly we can all remember like the Olympics, right? One of my favorite parts of the Olympics each year is the Parade of Nations at the very first night of the Olympics, where all the athletes come into the Olympic Stadium, and almost all of them have their phones up, filming what they're experiencing, so they can share it with their family, with their friends, with their kids and grandkids, right? People love to share experiences. Companies that I think deliver great experiences, these are just a few. T-Mobile was one of my favorite companies to be with. Unfortunately, I'm not with them anymore because their coverage wasn't good enough, but man, was their service good as far as their face-to-face, their customer service, their social media experience. Legendary company like Zappos, right? The Apple store, right? I'm not sure you guys have an Apple store there in Charleston or in Columbia or what city you might have one in, but if you've ever been to one, Disney, right? The most magical place on earth. It's not just in the theme parks, guys. It's on the monorails. It's at the restaurants. It's at the hotels. It's in the Disney Village. It's all about experience. And I'll talk about Marriott in a bit. We talked about the Hilton. I'm a big Marriott fanboy. I'm a lifetime Titanium member, which means for the last 10 years of my life, I've spent 2.5 of them in a Marriott property, but they're my home away from home. But I go back to them because they're great at what they do. They provide great experiences. Speaking of experiences, how many of you guys have ever been out to a restaurant or bar and you got to use an ATM machine, but they're going to charge you a fee for your own money? But that can be a bad experience, huh? That could leave a bad taste in your mouth if you have to pay a fee to get your own money out. That doesn't seem right. Well, there's a bar in Chicago that I want to tell you about called the Boiler Room. It's in Chicago. I've been there because I wanted to check out to see if the story was true, but it's a bar that decided that they want to be cash only. Well, I'm going to guess a lot of you guys don't carry a lot of cash with you. You use your credit cards for a lot of things, or you use Apple Pay or some other digital service. But the Boiler Room, sure enough, is a cash-only bar. So they provide an ATM in the back for people that don't have cash. But that can cause a problem because it's not their ATM, it's a private ATM, which is going to charge a fee. So on their ATM, they have this sign. It says, here's the deal. Cash equals lower costs equals lower prices. So every time you use our ATM, we'll buy you a shot. You pay the fee, you get a shot for free. So they use the ATM, you bring the receipt to the bartender, and they give you a shot of Jameson's Irish whiskey. On top of the ATM, it says no receipt, no shot, no exceptions. Guys, this is brilliant. They take a pain point of someone having to get money out and having to pay a fee for their own money. And they say, look, you're going to pay a $3 fee, but we're going to give you a $4 or $5 or $6 shot of whiskey. What a brilliant idea to say, look, here's a negative. Here's something that's not fun, but we're going to make it worth talking about. We're going to make it something that people will tell people about and visit and go to. And I just think that's a great way of taking that, because Maya Angelou said it best, right? People will forget what you said, They'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And guys, in the real estate business, we get to do that every single day with our buyers and our sellers who are going through a chapter of change in their life. They're moving into a new house. They're selling the last memories off to move somewhere else. We get to do that every day. How you make people feel is what people talk about. If you can capture people being blog worthy, right? Being blog worthy like Marciano, being worth writing about or talking about or telling about. One of my favorite books is The Fred Factor. I'm not sure if anybody's read it. If you've read it, leave it in the chat and say, I've read it. And if not, I highly recommend you get it. By Mark Sanborn. It's an amazing book about Mark Sanborn's mailman, whose name was Fred. And I've had a good Fred Factor experience as well. See, when I travel to speak around the country, I don't park at the airport. I park at a place called Thrifty, and a valet gets in my car, and we drive to the airport, and I get out and I fly away, and they take my car back and park it. When I land, I get my luggage, I get in a shuttle bus, and they take me back to my car. In the wintertime, the heat's on, all the frost or snow's dusted off. In the summertime, the air conditioner's on nice and high. Except one time, it wasn't the same. Because usually I would get my luggage, I'd walk to the shuttle bus, the doors open up, I climb in, I go to my car, I go home. It's really simple, except one time it wasn't. I'd been on the road for a couple of days. It was the end of summer. I was hot. It was humid. I was tired. I wanted to see my family. I grabbed my luggage. I strolled across the parking lot. I saw the shuttle bus sitting there. The doors opened up like they always do. But out jumped Fred, the driver. I'd never met Fred before, and nobody's ever jumped out to help me. He said, let me get your luggage for you, sir. Climb inside the bus. I've got the air conditioning on, nice and cold. It's been very hot and humid here in Columbus this week. I'll get your luggage for you. And I climbed in and I watched with amazement as he loaded my luggage up and jumped out for the next passenger and the next passenger and the next passenger. And all the passengers had the same look on their face that I had on mine. A little surprise, a little inquiry as to what was happening. They sat down in the cold bus, and before we drove back to get our cars, Fred came in and said, before I leave, folks, I just want to ask a question. Would you like some candy? And he walked down the aisle with a basket of candy. Would you like some candy? Would you like some candy? Would you like some candy? He gave us all candy. As he sat back in the driver's seat, he strapped himself in. He said, folks, if you're from Columbus, welcome home. If you're not from Columbus, welcome to what I think is the greatest city in America. My name's Fred. I'll be your driver tonight. We have about a 7-minute ride to get your car. If you've all called in your tickets, your car should be ready for you when we pull up. Here's the weather forecast for the next few days. Here's the activities going on in Columbus for the next few days. And if you have any restaurant needs, I can certainly recommend some of my favorites. Now, I leaned forward from my front row seat and I said, Fred, do you work for the Chamber of Commerce? He said, nope, I just love what I do and I love where I live. And let me tell you guys, we had the greatest shuttle bus ride of my life that night. The same shuttle bus ride I've always had, but it was different. When we got to the terminal a few minutes later, I let all the other passengers get out of the bus and I said, Fred, can I take a picture of you? He says, why do you want to do that? I said, because I'm going to write a blog about you. There's Fred with his candy dish. And I went home and I tucked my kids in and I kissed my wife and I wrote a blog post called The Fred Factor in Real Life. And I called and sent it to Thrifty the next morning because I wanted somebody to give him a pat on the back. I wanted somebody to know the impact he had. I wrote the blog so that my readers would know the impact, but I wanted someone at the store to know. The cool thing was about 2-3 weeks later, I get a message on Facebook from somebody that I don't know. And the message came in on Facebook from a guy named Ted Brees. But it says, hello from Fred Rowe. It says, hi, Sean, I'm not computer literate, so it took me about a week to contact you instead of the very next day to thank you for your kind words. I've had many customers compliment me with a quick thank you, but you went way beyond and took the time and effort to create a very eloquent story about how I treat people at my work. When he sent it to Thrifty, it made quite a sensation with the managers who sent it to all the locations nationwide. I've got many congratulations from my peers and managers. My Columbus manager also gave me the next day, Saturday off. I never get Saturdays off. And 2 free tickets to the OSU Purdue game. I'm a big OSU fan. What a treat. Best of all, your article highlighted something positive in this world when the only thing we hear on the news is quite the opposite. I believe the world is full of Freds like you who are filled with kindness and are performing acts of kindness every day. And I thank you very much for my big surprise. How cool is that? Fred didn't know how to thank me. He found his friend named Ted and said, how do I find this guy? And he typed me out that note. I get this message from the manager a couple weeks later. Sean, this has gotten Fred the recognition he deserves. Employee of the month for the whole country. And I'm sure he'll be nominated for Employee of the Year. Thanks again for the great pub. Guys, I can't tell you, after this happened, every time I landed, I would walk out of the airport and I'd say to myself, please be Fred, please be Fred, please be Fred, please be Fred. And you know what? Every once in a while it wasn't. And I'd say, why's it got to be Steve tonight? Because Steve was okay. He got me to my car, but he didn't do it the way Fred did it. Now, I'll kind of leave a little buzz on the story at Buzzkill. Fred retired a couple years ago. The service has since shut down, maybe because Fred's not there anymore. But for the time period after Fred retired, they changed their buses. And you know what was inside every bus on the front? A candy dish. A little simple candy dish to make the passengers feel comfortable. Guys, if you can catch people being blog worthy, I try and find people doing amazing things in my city. And great service isn't enough. It's got to be memorable. So when a server takes good care of me, or when Linda at the airport handles a canceled flight with a smile on her face, or when I travel to Virginia, Charlottesville, Virginia, and I have these two amazing girls wait on me, Erin and Hannah, and I write a blog about their amazing service. My question for you guys is this: what are you doing to be blog worthy? See, it's one thing to capture people being blog worthy. And here's what I'm going to challenge you to do. Start watching for people in your communities doing things worth talking about. Start watching for people to be willing to write a blog or a Facebook post or an Instagram or call their manager or leave a testimonial. Because when you start watching for things being a little bit better, you'll start doing things a little bit better. Maybe someone's going to catch you doing something awesome. So can you catch people being blog worthy? But what are you doing to be worth talking about? What are you doing that's so good that nobody else is doing, that your customers are going to go to the office and say, guess what my realtor did for me yesterday? Guess what happened at our closing, at our inspection, at our listing appointment? That's what we're aiming for, is that blog worthy experience that we're trying to get from people. One of my favorite bands is the Grateful Dead. Brian Halligan and David Meerman Scott wrote a book called Marketing Lessons from the Grateful Dead. And in this book, they talked about that our marketplace is tired of being marketed to, right? We have things like caller ID so that we can avoid taking calls from people that we don't want to talk to. We have spam protection that stops us from getting many, many, many emails. Think of how much crap we still get. If spam protection wasn't there, we'd get literally thousands of emails a day of unwanted email. And arguably one of the best inventions of all time, the DVRs, right? So that we can skip the commercials. So our marketplace is tired of being marketed to. We've got to start thinking differently here in 2021 and in the future, that I don't just want to market to somebody. In fact, I think this might be one of the most important slides I'm going to share today. So if you have your phones ready, maybe take out your phones, get your camera open, because I think what we all need to understand is it's no longer find me, sell me. It's now know me, help me. See, that little paradigm shift is powerful. It's no longer find me, sell me. It's no longer send out a bunch of stuff to strangers thinking they're going to say, yes, I'll use the person who just sent something to me in the mail that I don't know. It's about the relationship part of our business. And now it's about knowing me and helping me, solving my problem, having fun doing it. That's why we want to build the relationships, solve the problems, and have the fun. You can do find me, sell me. It does still work. I just don't think it's near as effective, and it's not going to be something that's going to be worth talking about and having other people talk about it. So think about which one you might want to do, is the find me, sell me, or the know me, help me. Because our world is changing. We've been talking about it the whole time. We're all connected somehow, some way. And if we can get the right connections, telling the right stories, then we have a chance of making more connections to tell more stories. If we give them something to talk about, then they'll do the talking for us. That's the best part about this philosophy, is if I'm good at what I do and other people tell people what I do, then I don't have to be the one to tell people. I just have to keep showing up and taking care of the people who tell my story for me. Because if I can just go back to the basics, right? Think about just going back to the basics of what we need to do. It's funny how so many people each year say, this is the year I'm just going to get back to the basics. Well, here's a question. If the basics work so well, Why do we quit doing them? Why would we have to get back to the basics? Why don't we just do the things that we know work and keep doing more of those things? And here's the great news for many of us on this call today. There's nothing broken with old school. Old school still works. And for many of us, that's a sigh of relief. You don't have to be Miss Techie or Mr. Techie. You don't have to have every gizmo and gadget and silver bullet and shiny object and thing that beeps and blinks and purrs. No, old school still works. Now, what's old school? Say, Sean, what's old school? Well, old school to me is this. Old school is being active in your communities, knowing who your neighbors are, knowing your town and your shopkeepers and the schools. Old school to me is being active in your church or synagogue or house of worship or temple. Old school is being active in your neighborhoods, truly knowing who your neighbors are, from when you walk the dog and walk the babies and walk with your spouse or partner, go out for a jog. Old school is being active in your local charities and in your kids' schools. Old school is being active in your country clubs and your barbershops and hair salons and gyms and pubs. How many of you guys remember Cheers, right? The great sitcom from the 80s and 90s, right? When Norm walked in, everybody said, Norm, but they knew Cliff and they knew Frasier and they knew Lilith, right? And they knew Woody and Sam and Rebecca and all the people. So can we get back to old school? Yeah, guys, everything on this page works. This page is Facebook before Mark Zuckerberg was born. Everything that you see on Facebook these days is what's happening on this screen right here. It's about being active in your community, in your schools, in your churches, in your charities. This is old school and it still works. In fact, I want you to write down $1 a dollar. What a great statement. $1 a dollar. As you think about your marketing for the rest of the year, $1 a dollar. How you spend your money is completely up to you. But just remind yourself that as $1 a dollar. Quick story. I had become the director of training in Cincinnati. I'm here in Columbus, but they added Cincinnati to my region. So the agents down there were getting to know me. And after a few months, I got to know all their agents, and especially the top agents. And one of our top agents, who was always a fixture in the top 10, her husband developed cancer and he died very suddenly. And it really kind of cut her feet out from underneath her. And she dropped out of the top 10 with her lack of business and lack of focus. And she fell to like number 55 or 60 in the company. And then finally, after a period of mourning, she saw me one day and she says, Sean, would you help me get back to where I belong? I said, I'd be happy to. She says, I want you to help me with my marketing. And I said, well, I'm not a marketer. I'm more of the training guy, but I'm happy to talk to you. So we sat down and we looked at what she was doing with her time and effort and money. And she's going through her list of things she does. And she says, oh, and I also do shopping carts. Now, let me just point something out. If you do shopping carts in your local town and it's working for you, then keep doing it. I'm not criticizing the act. I'm criticizing what she was doing. She says, oh, I do shopping carts. I said, what does that mean? She says, I have my name and logo on the shopping carts in my local grocery store. And I said, okay, and how much you spend on that? She says, $5,000. I said, wow, that's a lot of money. And she said, yeah, I've been doing it for 3 years. And I said, okay, well, let's look at return on investment. How many deals have you got from those shopping carts? She said, deals? None. I said, how many leads have you got? She says, I don't think I've gotten any leads. I said, okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're not going to do the shopping carts again. She says, oh, no, I have to. I say, oh my God, did they make you sign a lifetime contract? She says, no, but I know that my number one competitor has the right of first refusal. If I ever give him up, she gets the shopping carts. And I thought, well, then let her have no leads. She was kind of like a little old lady sitting at a slot machine. She didn't want to give up because she thought the next person is going to hit the jackpot. And I said, we've got to start doing something different with that money. And she says, well, what would I do that would be better? And I'm thinking to myself, literally anything would be better than zero return on investment. So I said to her, I said, well, didn't both of your girls go to this private girls' school right here in the town that you're in? She says, yep. In fact, I'm on the board of directors. And I said, well, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud, but what if we did a scholarship for graduating seniors instead of doing the shopping carts? What if we offered a $5,000 scholarship to a graduating senior each year, or 2 $2,500 scholarships, or 5 $1,000 scholarships? And here's what I said to her. If none of those people buy real estate with you, at least you feel better writing the check, right? But chances are you get a chance to give away a big check at graduation and get your name in the school Facebook page and talk about it with your family and community. What a great idea, guys. $1 is a dollar. How you spend it's completely up to you. So she thought about it and she never did anything with it. But I've told that story and that example all over the country. And one time I was up in Minnesota talking to our top agents up there with Cole Banker, and they're all nodding their heads like some of you guys probably are right now going, that's a good idea. And one guy did it. Dave Oswald said, I'm going to put that to use. Here's a little video that he did talking about it.
Hi, I'm Dave Oswald. You've heard me offer leadership you can count on. Well, this spring, 2 graduating seniors chosen from among these 7 area high schools will be awarded a Dave Oswald Holmes Scholarship for having demonstrated leadership of their own within their neighborhood, school, or faith community. For application and eligibility information, go to my website, daveoswaldholmes.com, and click on scholarships. Thank you, and good luck, seniors.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? Now, Dave has been doing that now, I think, for 5 or 6 years. He started with $1,000, and I think he did 1 winner, and he quickly realized he should do 2. He should do 1 male and 1 female. And now here's the thing. Some of you are probably thinking like, well, Sean, I wouldn't want to pick the winner because that means I have to eliminate some losers. And Dave thought the same thing. He said, well, I won't be the one to pick then. So what Dave did is he got a little panel, a little board of directors that picked his winner for him. He picked the sheriff from his small little town. He picked the head librarian at the school library. He picked the lifeguard from the pool. He picked the lady that owned the local bakery. I think he picked the person that ran the driver's school who knew all the kids. And he got about 8 or 10 of them together for a little pig roast and wine tasting at his house. And they read the essays and they picked the winner. It's gone so well. He's expanded it now. It's not just $1,000 for each male and female. He now, I believe, does $1,000 for a male staying in state, female staying in state, male going out of state, and female going out of state. He says, Sean, it's one of the best things I spend my money on. In fact, he told me 2 years ago, he said, Sean, I'd never thought I'd ever write a check to Harvard University until my recipient of the award last year decided to go to Harvard. Guys, $1 is $1. How you spend it is completely up to you. And I got to tell you, having a daughter who just graduated from University of South Carolina, $1,000 would have helped. $500 would have helped. Some small little scholarship would have made me feel good, would have made my daughter feel good. Think about maybe how you spend your money. $1 a dollar, how you spend it's completely up to you. But I don't want to make any of my newer agents out there think that old school is the only way to be successful, because new school does still work. New school is things like apps and social media and being mobile and giving people choices. That's still a great way to go through business, right? To find new business that you didn't know they were there to begin with, right? Think about new school. Apps like Twitter allow us to connect with athletes and entertainers and journalists and comedians or musicians like never before. We are so connected to people if we want to be. It's kind of amazing that we can stay in touch with people in a new school way. But we have to understand that not everybody does it the way we do it. We've got to figure out, how do I be unique and relevant at the same time? Because listen, some of us wake up each day and we read all of our emails on a desktop or a laptop. Some of us prefer to get things in the mail or read hard copy books, right? We like to actually read the physical books. Guys, many of us operate our entire life on this device. We look at a phone. So when we scroll through our emails and we just swipe to the left without even reading emails, how many of you guys have done that today? How many of you guys have opened up your emails on your phone and just deleted something without even reading it? Raise your hands. See, I can see a lot of you guys raising your hands. I really can't see you, but I know you're raising your hands because you're like me. You're like, nope, 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 nope. And you know who else does that? Your customers. Your customers do. Unless they're going to get something that's relevant to them, timely to them, interesting to them, something worth sharing, something to educate them, something to help them. So we've got to start thinking about, how can I make sure my stuff is relevant to my customers and clients so they can trust that when they open something from me or my company, that it's going to be worth looking at. It's going to be educational. It's going to be entertaining. It's going to be something worth sharing or something worth learning. Love this slide here. Research shows that buyers utilize relevant content to increase their confidence. And this is the part, pay attention. And the amount of the purchase is positively correlated to the number of content pieces they reviewed before purchasing. So if I'm looking at a $20,000 lot, then a yard sign telling me who to call might be all I need. If I'm going to consider purchasing a $1.5 million house on the lake, then I might want to see drone footage. I might want to see a video. I might want to see a story about the builder. I might want to see information about the Anderson wood windows and the hardwood flooring and the sound system and the community and the history. See, if you're going to ask for more, then you're going to have to provide more. Which are the channels and places where you're telling your story? How are you getting your message out there to enough people? Are you giving them something to talk about so that they'll do the talking for you? That's what we're trying to do in our business. But you have to decide if you're going to listen or you're going to talk. Because if we give them something to talk about, maybe we can do more listening so that we can give them more to talk about. Let me share a couple examples. I think Starbucks does an amazing job of listening. Starbucks is one of the largest companies in America. And look on this screenshot of their Twitter page. At the time I took this, they were being followed by almost 12 million people. But here's the cool thing, guys. Notice they were following back 100,000 of them. Most companies don't do that. Most companies don't pay attention to their customers, but Starbucks listens. Starbucks just tries to find out, what are our people talking about? What are they doing? What are they interested in? What are they afraid of? What do they like? What don't they like? So they can listen to make better decisions as a company. T-Mobile, once again, I said they do a great job of listening. They do a great job of responding. They have an entire team just to respond to you. How about Southwest Airlines, my favorite airline to fly? I love flying Southwest Airlines. Some people hate it because they say, oh, they don't assign you seats and they don't take it seriously. I love the fact that they're a fun, irreverent airline. I love the fact that they're affordable and they make it enjoyable. And it's just a great process for those of us that fly them a lot. In fact, I was coming back from that San Francisco event I told you about earlier, Inman Connect one time. And now when you fly first class or when you fly Southwest, you don't get your own seats, but if you're lucky, the plane's not full and you might have an open seat next to you, which is always kind of a treat. So I was coming back from that event. It was an early morning flight. And it was really nice because the entire plane wasn't full. I had the entire row to myself, which is awesome, right? The entire row to myself. So I remember when we took off from San Francisco, I opened up my window shade and I took a picture of the mountains from my plane. And I was on the Wi-Fi. So I tweeted out, "Dear Southwest, great views of the mountains today. Thanks for the ride home. Love, Sean and 24F. And they responded back on Twitter really quickly. Great picture, Sean. Try the peanuts. They're free." With a smiley face. I responded back. Love your peanuts. They make me thirsty. Bloody Mary? ? Sean and 24F. Guys, I'm not kidding you. 10 minutes later, flight attendant comes up and says, "Excuse me, are you Sean Carpenter?" And they handed me a Bloody Mary, courtesy of the social media team on Twitter. How smart is that they listened, right? Marriott, I told you I'm a huge Marriott fanboy. I love letting the Marriott know when they're doing a great job. In fact, I just flew on out to Seattle a few years ago. Long trip. When you're flying west, you got to take a couple different flights. And I checked into the courtyard at Lake Union there. You can see the Space Needle. Just to the left of this picture is the Amazon headquarters, the Bill Gates Foundation. Beautiful part of Seattle. Well, when I checked in, I let the front desk girl know that she did a great job. She'd had a couple customers kind of giving her a hard time in front of me. She was almost ready to cry. When I got up there, I said, "Everything will be fine. Take a deep breath. I'll be really good." So when I went up to my room, I tweeted out to the Marriott. I said, "Amazing welcome and service from Alina at the front desk at the Courtyard Hotels. Extra friendly and helpful." And when I went downstairs, I said, "Hey, I just want to show you that I just tweeted out to the Marriott to let them know what a great job you did." And she smiled. And I asked her for a recommendation on a place I could get a burger and a beer. And she gave me some directions down the street. By the time I got to the restaurant, the Courtyard had already responded to me. They said, "We're so glad to hear that Alina took great care of you, Sean. We've shared this with her leadership team. As always, it's a joy to hear from you." The next morning when I woke up, I was there for a couple of days, guys. So I wasn't checking out that day, but I was there for a couple of days. So when I got up to go in the morning, I noticed there was something under my door. And I thought, well, this is weird because I'm not checking out. So why would they have sent my bill under the door? But it wasn't a bill. When I found out what it was, I walked over to the laptop in my room and I went on Facebook and I posted this. I said, when you're nice to people, it's always nice to know that your actions truly had an impact. Could be immediate, could be the next day, could be years later. Today, go make someone feel good about who they are or what they do. Because what was under my door, you guys, was a note from Alina that said, "Mr. Carpenter, I just wanted to say that I truly appreciate your shout out via Twitter. It's It's quite surprising how much of a thankless job this could be. Having one person in the night go beyond the check-in interaction is absolutely heartwarming to me. So 1,000,000 times, thank you for making my night brighter. Now, the reason I share that with you is because I posted that about be nice to people today. And within 10 minutes, I had 181 people acknowledge the post and, 50, 60, 70 comments. So here's what I know. I did something nice for Lena. The courtyard responded back. Alina did something nice for me. I shared it. And I'm going to guess a lot of those people did something nice for somebody in their community because we listened. There's Alina on the left. There's our manager on the right. Looking forward to get back there and seeing what that little girl's doing. I'm sure she's a rock star now. If she stayed in the business, she's probably a manager by now. Really cool. I told you I used to work for Miller and Coors. So Budweiser is kind of a big enemy of ours, right? They were until the campaign Best Buds came out a few years ago during the Super Bowl. You guys might remember this commercial that came out.
Well, you only need the light when it's burning low. Only miss the sun when it starts to snow. Only know you love her when you let her go. Only know you've been high when you're feeling low. Only hate the road when you're missing home. Only know you love her when you let her go. And you let her go.
So that's a pretty good commercial, isn't it? Well, that commercial had come out before the Super Bowl a few years ago. And so on Super Bowl Sunday, I woke up and I sent this message out on Twitter in the middle of the afternoon. I said, I'm anxious to see how brands react to feedback from social media users in responses to Super Bowl commercials. And I tagged 3 very influential marketers, Gary Vaynerchuk, Scott Stratton, and Matt Collier out of Nashville, Tennessee. I was just curious to see if anyone would respond to me about what their thoughts were about what we were going to see that night. I got a response back from Matt Collier almost immediately. He said, hey, Sean, it looks like Budweiser has created @Budweiser the puppy. Smart to engage viewers before and during. See, so Budweiser created a little Twitter handle for the dog in the commercial. Well, I responded back to Mac that said, yeah, you know what? Many people think it was my puppy they used. Meet @Callie the puppy, because my dog has a Twitter page as well, because we had just gotten Callie the puppy. There's a picture of Callie. And so a lot of my friends, when they started seeing that commercial, said, hey, Carp, is that your dog in the commercial? So my dog on Twitter follows people like Snoop Dogg and Snoopy and things like that. But when I responded back to Mac, then Mac said, Callie wins, right? Basically a way of giving me a little kudos. Hey, cute puppy there, Sean. Callie wins. But then later in the day, when Budweiser Puppy sends a message to my dog, Callie, and says, hey, are we long lost best buds? The hashtag for the campaign. And they made a 6-second Vine, which we don't have anymore, but a 6-second little video with my dog in their commercial. What? Yes, they sent back a little video with my dog in their commercial. Watch, here's what it looks like. There's my dog right there. See my dog right there? Guys, how neat is that? That on Super Bowl Sunday, they didn't have anybody out there trying to sell us more 12 packs of Bud Light. They had somebody create Budweiser Puppy's Twitter handle, and then they listened for people talking about the Budweiser Puppy. Before kickoff on Super Bowl Sunday, Budweiser Puppy had 12,000 people following it. Guys, that's word of mouth right there. That's using technology and good service and memorable experiences to get people to talk about you. Here I am, someone that works for Miller and Coors that hates Budweiser, but I love them now because of what they did. Seth Godin, one of my favorite authors, bloggers, speakers, and thought leaders, says, when you over-deliver, you earn trust. Trust that brings you repeat business, access to new opportunities, and the privilege of being able to count on your customers coming back. Repeat and referral business. Think about this, guys. Look at all these places we have to tell our story. And remember, Look at all the places we have where people can tell our story for us, where people can let people know about how good we were, our service, our advice, our counseling. What's the story you're telling? Because if you figure out what the story is you're telling, then if it's easy enough to be retold, other people will tell it for you. Just ask yourself, what's the story being told about me? Do I like what it says? Is it memorable? Will other people listen to it and react to it? As we start to finish up, you got a choice to make, guys. I want you to think about some of the things we talked about in this last hour. You could say, well, that was a good use of my time, but I'm going to keep doing things the way I've always done it. Or you might say, you know what, based on what Sean said and the stories he shared, I might do things a little differently in the rest of 2021. I might try and find some people being blog worthy and take some risks and maybe write some testimonials or some stories or some reviews and maybe try and get some people to talk about me. But some people won't do that because they're going to feel vulnerable. They're going to say, I don't like to get outside my comfort zone. But you're going to understand that vulnerability is kind of cool, right? When you do stuff that makes you vulnerable, sometimes people respect you more because you're putting yourself outside your comfort zone. And you meet a whole new audience when you do that. Think about this, guys. This could be a picture here of the National Association of Realtors. The general public thinks we're all the same. How are we going to stand out and be different? How are you going to be the needle in the haystack to make yourself look different when the consumer's looking for a realtor that offers what you'd offer, where you offer it, and how you do it? Can you be unique enough? Can you stand out, or should you sit down? You guys won't know this guy, but his name is Jimmy Crum. He died years and years ago, but he was our sportscaster on Channel 4, our NBC affiliate here in Columbus. You know, what's funny is he had the same scores of the games as Steve Minnick on ABC and Dom Tiberi on CBS, but people watched Jimmy Crum because he wore a different jacket every night. And how about Madonna? Madonna being different and unique, her dancing, her dress, her songs, 21 number one hits later. She was the original Lady Gaga or Miley Cyrus, right? George Burns had the cigar and the thick glasses. Guys, without the glasses and cigar, he's just kind of a creepy old guy, but he had a story to tell. And in sports, you see John Daly with the loudmouth pants, Ricky Fowler wearing his Puma orange, Tiger Woods on Sunday with his I smell blood red, right? So maybe you're going to say to yourself, well, maybe I'll just wrap my car. Or what if I got a moving van? Or what if I just got different shaped business cards? I don't know. Maybe you could get a billboard. Now, I'm not saying you get a billboard. Trust me, Nick, I'm not suggesting any of your agents down there do this. But probably no surprise to anybody that happened in LA, that was an actual billboard in LA. But what we got to do, guys, is we got to be different. We got to earn the respect and recommendation of our customers so they'll do our marketing for free. If we can do that, we're going to win. So let me wrap up with some final thoughts. We'll see if there's any questions from Nick or any of the attendees. Listen, guys, we trust the opinions of people like us more than anybody else. We're going to look to our peers, our friends, our family before we're going to go to a stranger, before we're going to go to even a testimonial that's not verified. Because anybody can put, this was an amazing hamburger, signed a hamburger eater, right? We want to know who's talking. Advertising is what you say you are. Marketing is what you do. But I have to tell you, and maybe remind us, word of mouth is who you are. And what we're trying to do is earn great word of mouth and great word of mouse so people will know our story. Ask yourself this: what are you doing every day to become blog worthy? To get someone to want to write a blog, go on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, call your manager, write a testimonial to let people know, insert your name here, was amazing. Remember, 3 things: build relationships, solve problems, have fun. You do those 3 things every single day, promise you everything else will take care of itself. There's my contact information, guys. Follow me on my blog at carpscorner.net. Go to carpscorner.net. You can subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Sean Carp. I'd love to connect with you. Make sure you send me a message. And Nick, if there's any time, I'll see if there's any questions. I'll look in the chat. But hopefully people got some good ideas, maybe a little information, and hopefully a little inspiration here to finish the year strong. So on behalf of Nick and all the agents around the great state of South Carolina, I'm Sean Carpenter, Columbus, Ohio. I'll stick around for a couple seconds, but I want to thank you guys for being on with us today.
Thank you, Sean, so much. We really appreciate your message. The, as I travel around the state right now, your message couldn't be more timely, right? We hear from agents all across the state, from members, that common good manners and politeness and kindness have been thrown out of the window.
Yeah.
And just some basic thank yous and returning phone calls in a timely way, and canceling appointments if you can't make it on time. And those little things build your character, reputation in your community, and all the things you mentioned today, Sean. I think it just couldn't be a more timely message, and thank you. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
I don't see any questions in the chat. And we're at the top of the hour. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I want to thank everybody for their time. I know our realtor members are extraordinarily busy right now, and I hope and pray that you guys stay safe, stay realtor strong. Sean, thank you. It's a pleasure to see you again. And I know you're going to be working with us later in the fall with some leadership training. We're looking forward to that opportunity, and hope to see you in person here real soon, buddy. Take care.
Awesome. Take care, Nick.
Thank you.